So we're going to go ahead and start if you don't mind. It's my great pleasure to introduce um, Dan Plummer. And we had a couple conversations earlier before this. So I'm going to start off by just asking Dan to explain what we're doing tonight and give a little bit of background.
Sure. So, yeah, first, Charlie and everybody who's here, thanks so much. I mean, I think this is an innovative way to try to connect with classmates. So, Charlie asked if he told me about the concept of having some events around which we could share, sort of reacquaint each other with each other and get ready for the reunion. So he said, I know you're taking pictures. Could you talk about some of them? So I guess the ham and me said, yeah, for sure. So yeah, I don't know how much depth you want me to go into, Charlie. A minute or so of background or something?
Yeah, explain what you did at
Yeah,
Kenyon and then the
yeah.
classes you took afterwards, just how
Sure,
you got
yeah.
familiar with formal photography.
Point A to point A minus. Yeah. So I was when I was a sophomore, I really thought I'd major in chemistry or biology or art because I loved photography. So when I was a sophomore, I didn't take any chemistry. I took biology and art, a few other things. And then at the end of the year, I had to decide. And Chuck Gold, who was the photography professor, he was pretty vague. He would say stuff like, it's a process and, figure out what moves you. And I was like, I don't know, I was like 19 years old at the end of my sophomore year. And I was like, I don't think I'm ready for whatever this process of discovery is going to be. So I majored in chemistry and I had a career in chemistry, but I really always was frustrated, all that time because I wasn't doing a lot of creative anything. And I always had in mind, I would restart this sort of photography journey. And so I retired in 2016 and I did. I bought a camera and started taking pictures and just, slowly worked my way through it. So yeah, it's a hobby. It's certainly not a vocation, but it's a strong interest of mine. And it's something I spend a lot of time on.
When I first saw um, Dan's pictures on Facebook, he's been posting we've been friends for probably 5 or 10 years on Facebook.
Mhm.
And it really intrigued me. They were so detailed and there were so many different themes penetrating them. Can you talk about your themes and how you're organizing them for tonight's show?
Sure. Yeah. So, broadly, I take a lot of landscape pictures, and for a while, I took a lot of, nighttime photographs documenting, the sky and the land and stuff like that. But I'm just stuck on the land. I don't know why. Not so much people, not so much architecture, although I do some of those things. So tonight, what you'll see is a fairly narrow range of landscapes, and they might fall into the category of landscapes that sort of explore the theme of man versus nature. They're not just, to be honest, there really aren't that many pictures that are just beautiful pictures. They're balanced, I guess, because I'm trying to capture some element of about work or community or culture or businesses or something like that. And so I'm trying to always make sure there's either a visual or a metaphorical message in there too. So they're grouped into, I think I hit all those categories: work, business, culture, home, land, and nature. So just a few of each. It's hard to curate down to a couple dozen pictures, but that's what we'll try to do tonight.
Why don't we start with the show and then as you have questions, I think the easiest is to put them in the chat room. And if you don't mind, I'll ask them as they come up. That way we don't have people talking over each other. It just makes it a little bit easier if everybody's
Sure.
agreeable to that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so what I'll do is I'll see if I can share my screen. And we'll do that. Basic. I'll take basic, share. Okay. Does anybody see a photograph?
we're good. Everybody
You're
got it?
good. Okay, good. Yeah. I haven't done a PowerPoint for a few years. So I just titled this group of photos, 24 American landscapes. And then I was going through them this afternoon, and they're 23. So that's the kind of work I do. But, and I do have some notes. So I'll look off to the side. I'll just so I can try to keep on track here a little bit. But yeah, thanks for inviting me to do this. I think I kind of went through when I was a sophomore story. So yeah, I think I'm engaged in this process. I don't know how well I'm doing it, but I sure am enjoying it. You know, as I said, I think the main thing I try to capture in this work, the work that I find most passionate in, is just trying how to document how we as people interact with the land. You know, what have we given it? What's it take? What have we taken back? You know, what is it taken back? I take a lot of pictures here where I live in Southwest Louisiana. I live in Lake Charles, Louisiana. It's in the southwest corner, about 30 miles from the Gulf, but also during a lot of travels. My wife, Sherry, and I have this little travel trailer that we take around the country. We've been as far as Arizona. And as some of you heard, we visited Mike Hardy last summer in Colorado as part of a trip. But yeah, so this is just a shot of our little travel trailer. This one, I think, is in Waco, Texas, or somewhere like that, but it was a nice picture that framed our little campsite. Yeah. So let's go on to the categories, and they're not in any particular order, but I just picked work as the first one. And this is a picture not too far from home over in Hackberry, Louisiana. It's a small community of about 1,200 people, mostly blue collar, fishing, guiding, construction workers, and stuff like that. This is a relatively pretty picture. It's the part where I'm supposed to tell you you should be buying Gulf Coast shrimp, not shrimp from an Asian country, I guess. It's a pretty scene in the fog, and as you'll see, I like to take pictures in the fog. It softens the light, you know, it helps the subject come into view, blurs, it softens the background, but it also gives you, it just presents a different feeling and helps me calm my mind when I'm trying to take pictures. This is another picture, sorry, more fog. I do like to try to find solitude, you know, when I can, also to just sort of aid in that. The enjoyment and the creative process. I'll talk a little bit about the process. I shoot a digital camera almost all the time. A lot of these landscapes are shot with what's called a tilt shift lens, which allows you to move the focal plane up and down or tilt it a little bit to adjust the scene. And by that, you can keep the vertical lines vertical, but move the horizon up and down. And so that you'll see a lot of shots that are taken that way. It may not be obvious, but yeah, so this is one that's sort of pastoral in nature and sort of has little elements of that nature on the left versus man on the right kind of balance. But it's a picture about how somebody earns their living, obviously, with through agriculture. This is one that was taken not too far from home, and it may be not the most easiest to look at scene, but it's an ice machine. And actually, I'll talk about ice machines in a little bit. But there's a man at work over here with white boots and red, white, and blue striped overalls, buying a lot of ice at about 7 a.m. on a foggy morning. He's obviously at work. He's very studious. He and I didn't speak, although we acknowledged each other's presence. Yeah. So there's your first ice machine picture. This is a shot that was taken in sort of the southern part of our parish. That we have parishes instead of counties in Louisiana, but as much as I like solitude and taking my time when I take pictures. This was a picture that I shot out the window of the truck with the motor running. It was an active, like a work site. And I'm pretty sure, the security people would have come out and talked to me a little bit if they'd seen me wandering around with my camera. So this is one of those pictures you just sort of take it in and move on. But something about the scene sort of really captured my attention and then started to bother me. But this, you can see it's a visitor and employee orientation site, and it's for construction workers who were at that time building a large gas export facility on the coast. So this is where they would report for, interviews and employee orientation. And then once they got a job, would be their park and ride. And it's just, just struck me how bleak this site looks and how temporary the signs are. The visitor and employee orientation sign there, it's just made out of some plywood and 2x4s, and those little signs came from a print shop, and they sort of were talking about rooms for rent, and they sort of speak to the housing shortage that was going on here at that time, partly because of the pandemic and partly because of several of these really large projects that created a big strain on the housing market, and partly because of Hurricane Laura that came through in late 2020 and did a lot of damage. And I'll come back to Hurricane Laura. But anyway, that's one of my favorite pictures in this group. Loosely business. As I mentioned, I do like taking pictures at night. I think this is the only one in here that I took in darkness, but I've always been intrigued by when light radiates from a structure like that. And I don't know why, but I've always been interested in capturing it and spent a lot of time trying to do it.
Hey, Dan.
Yeah.
Explain to them why you're working primarily in black and white.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Charlie. So for one thing, it's easier to work in black and white. It's very easy with digital, with software to adjust the tonal values of different colors. But the other thing is that I'm colorblind, and it's, I just don't have any confidence in doing anything particularly creative in photography, that involves color. So I just get way outside my comfort zone very fast when I'm making color picture edits. Good question, though.
And it's funny because in music, and I'm sure Wade will tell you this in poetry, often limitations actually facilitate and actually generate creativity in ways unexpected and really interesting ways.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that the very fact that you're concentrating specifically on black and white may actually lead to more creativity rather than less.
Yeah,
So
perhaps. I mean, it does make you focus on different things more closely, So yeah, thanks for asking. But anyway, so back to the subject of light coming from a building, it has sort of a spiritual quality to it that I like. But when I've tried to try it out on a church or a structure at a cemetery or something, that metaphor it's just too juicy and too strong. So I guess better that from my point of view, that if I'm going to make a picture of light coming out of a building, it should come from a small house or a laundromat, or in this case, a Waffle House. So, this is kind of a classic, man versus nature picture. It's a strip mall building that was under construction in Lake Charles, and so on the left you can see, the soft shapes of the trees and the clouds, and on the right you can see this sort of stark vertical shiny horizontal lines of the construction, and the soil between us and the building is disturbed. Weeds have found it, and they're starting to take hold, and so the only man-made lines in the picture that are curved There's that sort of hump of a piece of tubing, and even that is just sort of stark and unnatural looking. And the contrail is up here in the sky is even a linear man-made mark in contrast to all the sort of soft, roundish natural marks. So I like the picture, for that reason. Yeah, and here's another one of those pictures taken at an industrial facility out the window, quickly. And this is another picture I like. I think it's strong. But it's just by coincidence related to one of those liquefied natural gas facilities. This is an outdated one that is no longer in operation. It was an import facility, but the gas price changed globally so much that in 2018 everything flipped, and so the economics only favored exporting from the US rather than importing into the US. So this is a site on a small maybe half a square mile of concrete and gravel, and it's just in limbo, and I don't think anything will really ever come of it. And it's just sort of it's a sad waste of land, but it's this uncertain future. It even shows in the weeds and this little posted sign that's grown over on the left-hand side.
Is that a water tower in the back?
Yeah, it's a water tower painted, kind of like they paint them near an airport. Not sure why. Probably maybe it's a helipad in there or something.
And is it feeding the municipality, or was it feeding the actual plant?
No, it was really just feeding that plant itself. Yeah. Yeah, the way that worked, I think they would bring gas, it was liquid, and then to gasify it, to vaporize it and put it in pipelines, they needed seawater or water. So I imagine this structure had something to do with storing water and keeping the water pressure adequate for that big water usage for warming up the gas.
And you have a question from Steve. Do you let the camera do the metering, or do you use spot meter zone system?
I usually spot meter. Oops, sorry. Where am I? I'm lost. I usually spot meter. But it's so easy to adjust this exposure on a digital camera. Sometimes I just sort of, as they say, chimp it. I'll look at it or look at what they call the histogram and adjust the exposure and take another one. But yeah.
Chris mentioned that the range of black and whites is quite extensive. Any comment on that, or how you're creating that range?
Yeah, that's very good question. As I mentioned, it's kind of easy to adjust tones in software, especially when you're working in black and white. So a lot of times you just pull down just change the intensity, the saturation, let's say, of red or blue, and it dramatically changes the look. So it turns out, the foreground here, a lot of this comes out, it's registered as red and yellow. So if you fool with those, you can get a lot of contrast in that area where there might not have been a lot of contrast in a normal unprocessed picture. So, and I do try to make sure that each picture, for the most part, I always break rules, but I always try to make sure there's a zone 10 white and a zone 0 black in it, if I can use that language. But I like a wide range of tones. But in the last couple of years, I've tried to keep things on the lighter side and make the shadows just very interesting rather than having big dark areas of the scene. Okay. Okay. So a little bit about cultures, a few pictures. This is another ice machine picture, and I don't, maybe a question. I don't know if if in your parts of the country, if you have a lot of these roadside ice vending machines, but we do. We have a lot of fish, shrimp, fishing, hunting, partying, that goes on. So I guess the demand for ice is high, and it's hot here, so there are quite a few of these, and But the interesting thing I've seen since, since I've been shooting in 2018 is it's hard to find an ice machine without flags around it. So they're sort of turned into sort of cultural centers in a certain way, or cultural markers. I'm not quite sure. They probably just signal, I don't know, political leanings of the owners, but at this one, you can see they're advertising for faith-based news if you don't like the news that you get, normally. So interesting spot. And the next picture is a similar one, and it's just taken about a mile from my house at a Tobacco Plus gas station. And there's this literally it looks like a shrine of flags around this air vending machines, tire filling machine. And I haven't even captured all the flags that are around it. That was also kind of a grab and go picture. And then there's a flag back here that belongs to the Chick-fil-A. So it's a very, let's say, patriotic corner. A little disturbing to me, but that's just me. And then to a different culture, this shot was taken in Hominy, Oklahoma, in Osage County. Mike Sarup and Hardy have been there because that's where I got married. And you could see the little Hominy bargain shop on the right, which was actually a more going concern in those, 40, whatever it is, 30 something years ago. But it supplied our wedding with flowers on the one hand and liquor. So there were two different shops in the same building that we took advantage of. Now it's the Hominy bargain shop, but you see this mural by the local artist named Shea Tullis. He's painted about a dozen or more of those, I think, around town, these Indian themed murals. And he has a much more successful gift shop right up the street. I don't normally shoot pictures of other people's art, but in this case, these clouds were just very unique. I guess they're lenticular clouds, but just striking in their nature and contrasted with this sort of grim and dirty little tiny small town scene. Yeah, so the next topic is home, or homes, if you will. When I was at Kenyon, our professor was photography professor was Chuck Gold, as I mentioned early on, and he would sort of push certain photographers on us, probably a lot of them that I forgot, but Walker Evans and Minor White were two of them that I remember well. And a lot of these pictures of Walker Evans taken during the Depression were of row houses in different parts of the country. And this could have been a Walker Evans picture. And when I saw it, I shot it. And then later I started to reflect on this. You see this, it's a house they're under construction, but the wooden steps make them look like they're sort of, low income houses of some kind. And there's mud between us and the house. And I realized that this reminded me of my childhood home when we had just built it. And so there's the point I want to make is that autobiography sometimes, inspires a photograph, even though you don't know it. And but its only purpose really is to just attach it to the picture. I don't think you care that my house had a muddy backyard, but it had meaning to me and it made me take this shot. Another home, this is in Michigan, and I just like the sort of contrast to these big overgrown trees along with the well-weathered house. That's in Monroe, Michigan. And then this one, I don't know if this is a picture of sadness or a picture of hope, but the blow-up horse was out there at an apartment complex. This is in Springfield, Oregon, home of Homer Simpson, by the way, but also my son lives there. But there had been a birthday party, but they kept the blow-up horse, unicorn, I think it is, out there for a few days under the steps in the mud. And then this is a shot of a cul-de-sac in a yet to be developed housing development east of here. It's in Iowa, Louisiana, not Iowa. funny how places mispronounce or pronounce their city names differently. But yeah, so it's not as much about homes or anything. It's just a very interesting shape against the landscape there. The next loose group I called land. And here's a picture of some scruffy land in West Texas. And that's my wife, Sherry, in our truck, and the little trailers behind it. You stopped for a lunch break. Yeah, too much autobiography probably in that shot, but I liked it. And then a similar shot on along one of our travels where this is in northeastern Mississippi. And it suggests drought and a hot climate. It may not at all be that. It may just be normal fluctuations in the level of this lake, but it certainly evokes some of those thoughts. And then we shot this in Oceanside, Oregon, at very low tide on June 15th. So this is called Tunnel Beach. To reach this beach when the tide's at normal levels, you have to walk through a man-made tunnel that was just blasted through a sort of a cliff. But at low tide, and especially at this tide, you can just walk around on it. And on this morning in June, there were just people everywhere, inspecting these tidal pools and everything and waiting for the tide to come back in. And this guy and I did not interact at all, but he was just very focused on this tidal pool. And of course, the picture makes you wonder who or what's in the baby carriage behind him. Oops. Nature. This was taken on one of our camping trips. This is in Caprock Canyon State Park in Texas, where the bison roam freely inside the park, and the campers just do as they will. And this had eye contact with this bison out of the window of our vehicle, but I don't know that the man in the left part of the picture knew anything. But it's as though the bison and I knew what was going on, and I just wondered why the guy wasn't paying a little bit more attention to the bison. It can be a little dangerous, but anyway, little man versus nature there. This one I shot in Lake Charles, and I kind of liked. Sorry, maybe it's a little too strong, this metaphor, but there was a guy wire, and holding up or going to a utility tower, and so it's kind of isolating these man-made, the picnic bench and stuff on the left from these well-weathered palm trees on the right that sort of have this attitude about them. They're sort of gesturing. So I actually took quite a few pictures out there, and this is just the one I like best from there. And this one also has sort of a Kenyan connection. When we were in intermediate photography class, Chuck had us take pictures of a sequence to tell a story. And I'm sure he was inspired by a guy named Dwayne Michaels, who at that time was doing a lot of this. And he's still alive. But there was so Hurricane Laura came through our area in the fall of 2020, and it was a devastating hurricane. And so I shot a lot of pictures, just of everything that was broken, but everything was broken, like 90% of the structures or more had been damaged. And certainly 90% or more of the stop signs had been damaged. So one morning I just went out and said, I'm just going to take pictures of these stop signs. And I did that for a few days. And then I just took the pictures so that the stop sign post was vertical. And then I just arranged them so from the horizon being, down to the left to appear at the top left, and down to the right at the bottom right. And it's a little hard to look at all of them, but each one of them tells a little story about just the mess that was going on there around them. And also part of the hurricane story was we've once you own a little trailer like this, if there's a hurricane coming, well, then you have to leave because the trailer is at risk of being blown around and wrecked. So we took it on a little circuitous route. And on the night the hurricane came through, we were in Broken Bow, Oklahoma. And our travel plans have been disrupted because we thought we were going to camp one place and they said, no, the hurricane's going to come too close. So you got to go somewhere else. So we went here and got here late, and we were just exasperated and frustrated. You're trying to find out news about the hurricane. Where did it really go? What has it done? And I think Sherry's expression there just sort of shows the burnout we were feeling. And to complete the story, the house did get damaged, but not terribly badly, and it's all in good shape now, 2.5 years later. So that's really what I wanted to say about these pictures. I guess I hope that you've seen some landscapes. I try to include elements in each one of them about the geography, a good form or composition of the picture, metaphor. We could see that in some of them. Autobiography, for which I apologize in some cases, but I think they're all honest photographs. And anyway, hope you enjoyed them. Thanks.
Do we want to open up and have some comments about the show?
Okay.
And all right, do you want to talk?
Dan, this is
Get a little echo there. I think that was Cindy.
Yeah, we're getting kind of an echo on some of the people. Chris made a couple comments about he loved the clouds, and most enjoyable from Mark. Thank you, not right away. He doesn't want to talk. He said the photos are great. The clouds are amazing. This is Chris Barr.
Oh yeah, hey Chris.
Much different from working in Tri-X back in the day.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, that was pretty gritty film. Pretty grainy.
And for those of you who are here, leave a comment about what kinds of things you might want to see as part of a Zoom in the future. We can do this as we go toward our 50th as well as this 45th. And like Woody, we're going to reserve for you. Woody, are you still here? Yeah, he's still here.
Okay.
Woody, we're reserving. He's going to do a reading at the reunion, and then maybe have him come back and do a Zoom some other time.
That would be great. Great.
We'd love to have that, but we're kind of reserving you for the real thing, if you don't mind.
That's cool. Dan, this was amazing.
I'm sorry, say it again.
I was saying, Dan, this was amazing.
Thanks, Woody. Appreciate that.
And I'm not sure I was writing, Dan, quite amazing portraits of your journees. I'm not sure if I just did it. So
yeah, okay, cool. Thank you.
Technology works. But no, it was definitely a reprieve from my long work day. And believe it or not, I have to go back to work when we're done here.
Is there any questions? Steve had a question. Where'd it go? Is any of the medium on large format, medium or large format, or 35 millimeter of silver based and standard format?
Yeah, this is, I think all these pictures, Steve, are just on like digital camera that has sort of what they call full frame sensor. So it's the same size, 35 millimeter. And I've done a little work on 120 film, but with a toy camera. So nothing like that. On the other hand, gosh, these digital cameras now, my camera takes a picture that is like 85 megabytes. And so the amount of detail that you can express in one of those is tremendous. I had somebody just lately buy 2 images, and they're going to print them 72 inches wide, and they look pretty good. So, but it's still the fast, digital cameras are sort of a fast camera. You move it around quickly. It's not the same as using a big view camera with big film in it. I still want to do more of that.
Any other comments or questions? Cindy Smith says, Dan, I had no idea that you were so interested in photography. Great shots.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you. I see that. Yeah. Yeah.
And Michael's writing something. Mike's writing
Okay.
something.
Hardy, yeah. Dan, thanks. He
Anyone
says
in-
Dan's trailer is cool too. Thank you.
Anybody want to say hi to anybody?
I want to say hi to everybody.
I have another one of these scheduled, and it's going to be totally different. On March 8th, we're hosting Rabbi Steve Lebo, and this comes out of something that happened to me. I worked about 2.5 miles from Steve for 25 years from his Temple Kolemeth. And oh, thank you, Lindsay. And so there is a show opening on Broadway with Ben Platt this month called Parade. And as I was traveling and watching Steve about 3 years ago on the 100th anniversary, he convinced the Georgia Monument Society to put up a monument to Leo Frank. And if you know the story of Leo Frank, he was hung on the sheriff of Cobb County's lot, ostensibly for raping and killing a 14-year-old employee. All indications, or most indications, indicate that he was not guilty of such crime. And it opens up a whole discussion of Judaism, anti-Semitism in 1910 or whenever this happened. No, 1915. 1915, 100 years ago, and a discussion of how to deal with history from a modern perspective, looking backwards. And Steve's bringing in the Deputy Secretary of State, no, Deputy Attorney General for the state of Georgia. And he's going to lead a discussion about the trial and about the history of this case. There's been 5 or 6 movies made about it, in addition to this play with Ben Platt. It's circling around 100 years later, and it opens up a lot of discussions that I think are really important. Who's online is going to co-host with me. And so we really encourage you to let people know about this. Really, I think it's going to be an interesting discussion. It's going to be from a historical point of view, not from a current point of view. We're going to try to really concentrate on it, specifically what happened from a historical point of view. But Steve's done all kinds of research for about, I think he's been doing 15 or 20 years worth of research, and has all of these really interesting people that are discussing it. And he'll tell you the rest of the story. That'll happen on March 8th. That'll be open to all classes of Kenyon, just to get some kind of dialogue going. The second thing is, if you have other ideas of what we can do to meet with our classmates on this kind of a venue, I know some of you have a hard time getting back to Kenyon. Please let me know. I think this is really valuable, and as we go in the future, pushing toward 50 years, it might be a great way to reacquaint ourselves. By the way, I'll post, I don't think, hey, Lindsay, I can't share. I don't have a share screen app, but our reunion is the last weekend of May, and please come if you possibly can. Though it's only it's March, Kathy, it's March 9th. Kathy just told me it's March 9th. It's Thursday again. Thursdays are convenient for me. So sorry, March 9th. And that'll go out on an email as well. Also, Julie suggested that we have some films about all of the buildings that are either just completed or are being completed at Kenyon. And that's going to go, it's going to be emailed to all of you. We didn't have something that's totally complete yet. The West Quad is being completed as we speak. And there are 3 dorms going up that are going to be near Leonard, Hannah, and Old Kenyon. And if you're asking why it's necessary, there's a couple reasons. First of all, what's the handicapped law? Tell me. Disabilities Act,
ADA.
ADA, yeah. ADA is requiring that elevators and access are being made to all of the buildings. I would assume that's what's going to happen is once kids move in 2027, they'll rotate out of Leonard, Old Kenyon, and Hannah and renovate those buildings for energy. I don't know this for sure, but this is what I've read. Energy efficiency, access, being green. There's probably asbestos all over the place. I don't know that. I know there was at Bexley. But there's probably a bunch of stuff that needs to be dealt with in those dorms. As far as I know, none of them have been renovated in the last 100 years. If anybody knows differently, let me know. Probably Old Kenyon is the last one, and that's during the fire of 1949. So I'm sure plumbing and all of the things like wiring and internet access and all of that stuff will be addressed. So that's as far as I know. The campus is undergoing a huge renovation all the way across the board. A lot of money is being spent bringing it up to snuff. I had a student that visited the school. He ended up at Oberlin, and the comment was that some of the facilities are old and dilapidated. I never felt that way, but that was the comment of students coming in. So I think they're trying to spruce it up a bit, some of the older buildings. Kathy, am I right about that?
Oh my gosh, I don't know. I mean, they're definitely, updating things as needed, and there will be some renovations to existing dorms. One thing I wanted to mention that as a art major, and Dan, you might be interested in this too, Bexley is being renovated and it will be a dorm in about
Oh, cool.
a year or
Yeah.
so. So
Wow.
I love that building.
Yeah,
And it hasn't
I'd love,
really been
yeah.
used for anything for a while. There's a
I
fabulous
see.
new studio art building.
Yeah.
So I'm excited
both-
to see it happen.
Both Manning and Bushnell are, as far as I know, are slated to be demolished when all of this takes place. So any of us lived in any of those, they're going to be gone and be placed with the newer buildings. Is that right, Kathy?
Yeah, that's right. They will be demolished.
I'd love to know if we still have steam heat. If the campus, especially at the south side, if you remember the blizzard,
Yeah.
depending on where you were on the blizzard, if your heat was at the beginning, you were dying of heat. And if you were at the end of the line, you had ice on the inside of your windows. So I'd love to know what they're doing about that kind of infrastructure. And if you remember correctly, they didn't know where any of the steam pipes were. Nobody had a map. And when we didn't have water for a couple weeks, that was pleasant. So I think a lot of that's being reviewed and how the campus is going to look in 25 or 50 years. Any other comments?
Well, I'll just mention one more date, and that is March 1st, when our class will be able to register for reunion. So I'm sure you'll get emails about that, but encourage everybody to be there if you can be, and let people know. We hope it'll be another good one.
Yeah, Julie asked about maybe doing a swimmers Zoom. Julie, I just got an email that there's going to be a swimmers reunion in September. And the reason being that Steen's going to be indicted into the Athletic Hall of Fame. And I would assume, I don't know if the pool's been actually, Chris, has the pool been officially named after him? Has that already been officially done?
I don't know, Charlie.
So I would assume that they'll do some kind of ceremony for Jim Steen. That'll happen in September, and I'm sure there'll be a zillion people there. And Nationals is going on as we speak. Conference is going on as we speak, and Nationals is in Greensboro near me, Greensboro, North Carolina. Mike Hardy, you have to be back at one of these reunions.
Yeah, come on. I'm talking him into it now. So.
Yeah, and I really think we ought to start talking about the 50th reunion and coming up with some ideas of what you want to happen, and making things as pleasant as possible, and really getting people back to see that are. Oh, Lindsay said it is the STEAM Aquatic Center already. Bye, Anara. All right. Any other comments or questions or anything? Thank you, Dan.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Thanks, everybody, for being here.
This was great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Charlie, for organizing it.
Yeah, this was awesome,
Okay.
Charlie. Brilliant. Thanks to you and
Well,
everybody who worked on it.
Wasn't my idea, but I did think of you, Dan, and hopefully the next one will be also interesting.
Yeah. Well,
Great. Thank you, everybody.
thanks, everybody. Have a good evening, huh?
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah.
Okay, bye-bye.